Hello podcast people, we're having a daily quiz. You can study for 5 minutes mainly on domain range and x-y intercepts. When you're done studying, you can unpause this and I'll write down the questions for you. We just out of the class went to 7-Eleven. I bought everyone Slurpees and chips and pizza. Too bad you weren't here. There's a very cool AC/DC shirt on right now. Probably the shirt of the day. Alright, here's your daily quiz. Independent and dependent variable. Tell me which is which. Find the x-y intercepts. You know what, I think I'm going to do this here. Oh, okay, so let's go to x-y intercepts. When I'm done reading the questions, just pause it because I'm going to be going question. I'm going to go half a page further down right now. And domain and range. In both notations. Okay, so set notation and interval notation. Pause. Do those questions. When you're done, you can unpause. Okay, so before we crack the quiz, I'm going to we're going to correct some homework, and then you can adjust any answers you want on your daily quiz. So this is page 22, mainly number 2. Quick peek at number 1 here with all the squiggly lines. No, I don't need to do that because I'll go way too far. So here are the 2 A, B, C, D for domain and range. And of course, we also learned interval notation yesterday, so go ahead. I almost put a square bracket. In fact, I did. Luckily, it didn't write down. Oh yeah, I need to put these on. Here. And here. Okay, so don't forget about interval notation. What? Oh. And this one, if x is greater than -8, that means from -8, square bracket, to infinity. If y is greater than 4, that means 4 to infinity. And I'll just do one of these, -5 to 5, that's probably the easiest one. For interval notation, it's just that. All right, that's it. Go ahead and adjust if you want to. Or no, there's still E, F, G. Never mind. One more A few more questions, EFG, you can look at. And then if you want to change your answers for the day of the quiz, you can. G is a new one. Goes forever left and right. So domain is negative infinity to infinity. Y equals 8. So what's the range? What's the Y? What's only, all these points are 8 up. So whether it's 0, 8, 3, 8, negative 8, 8, 8, 8, every single point has 8 for the Y coordinate. And so for the range, the only thing it can be is 8. So that's a new one. So Y equals 8. You don't need to put anything about real numbers or anything. Because Y equals 8. How would you put that in interval notation? Y equals 8. Any questions on any of them? Remember, yesterday we also touched base and it was on homework on number 8, actually right here. If it has not, the endpoint isn't thickened in, that means the domain is from negative infinity to 5. But you know what, you wouldn't put a square bracket around 5 because that hollow dot means that it does not include the endpoint. Usually it does, and we have square brackets, but if you see something like this, and it's not filled in for the endpoint, that means a round bracket. All right, you got 1 minute. You guys have been adjusting already, but I'll give you another minute before we correct. And we'll go over daily quiz. Out of 5. And so a half mark for everything except for the XY intercepts. It's going to be a half mark for the X intercepts, half mark for the Y intercepts. All right, that's correct. I was going to actually correct in blue, but I think that's going to be less easy to see. So that's correct in black. First, independent, dependent. Which one is independent? Which one's dependent? Is X or Y independent? X is independent. Y is dependent on X to calculate it. Okay, and so on a normal graph, that's your X and that's your Y. So your independent variable equals T, your dependent variable equals D. Oh, by the way, everyone gets 5 out of 5 on this quiz. Except for one person. I won't mention her name. She probably watches DC movies. So, you watched the Captain America and Winter Soldier? Just watched them all, not all of them. I watched the last one yesterday. It was pretty good. I didn't think it'd be that good. They put a lot of effort into that movie or series. Okay, independent. So this is where if you see C equals or D equals or R equals, you think Y equals. Just like your top left calculator button. So C is the Y. And what's your independent one? Is it pi D? Is it D or is it pi? It's a variable, it's a letter, pi is a number, 3.14. Independent variable is D. So there. X, Y intercepts. So your X intercept, you don't need to write this down, X, Y equals 0. So I'm going to just do 4x plus 12 equals 0. Subtract 12 on both sides, and you get 4x equals negative 12. If you show your work, you won't make a sign mistake. Because if you put 3, that is just not right. Negative 3, 0, check. Good. And then the y-intercept, if I just look at the y part, but don't forget that negative sign and make x equal to 0, that cancels, and I have to solve that. So I get negative 2y, or you can bring the negative 2y over if you like that way better. It's better because you don't have to divide by a negative. And we get 0, 6. Good. Now this is going to be skinnier. X-intercept is keep the x part. So 4x squared equals 100. Divide by 4. X squared equals 25. What's the square root of 25? Positive, negative. Important now that you don't lose an x-intercept. And similarly, y-intercept is to get rid of the x part. You just have to solve y squared equals 100, so y equals positive negative 10. So 0, 10, and 0, negative 10 are the winners. How are you guys doing? Pretty good? If you didn't remember the negative x, y-intercept, you will remember tomorrow. Okay, that's enough. Study start and learn it, or just remember it. All right, and so x, y-intercept, and domain and range are the main concepts. Domain is how far your graph goes left to right, or the width of the graph. Range is the height of the graph, or how far the graph goes up or down. Domain here is negative 2 and up, or to the right. Remember, to the right means greater than or equal to. Up means greater than or equal to. So I'm going from negative 2 up. So the domain are all values of x, such that x is greater than or equal to negative 2, where x is an element of all real numbers. AKA in interval notation, someone tell me? David?
Domain equals square bracket negative 2 through positive 50 circle bracket.
Good. Okay. Green, I guess. So the range is how far up and down this graph goes, and think about parabolas. They go a little farther up, a little farther down forever, so they're eventually going to hit negative infinity to infinity. But how do you write that down in set notation? Anyone remember? Not named David? Not on that side of the classroom? On this side of the classroom? Thank you.
Such that y is an element of
Good job. Yep. Perfect. And that means all numbers from negative infinity to infin. Just made it up, infin. Sounds like I'm cool. Domain. I'm going to do it in blue today, I guess. All values of x such that it goes from negative 2 to 2. So how do I write down all numbers from negative 2 to 2? I write them less than equal signs, and hopefully you're getting the hang of that by now, which is way more complicated than that. I think everyone agrees. All right, the green is from negative 4. The range, all the values of y, such that y, negative 4 is less than or equal to y is less than or equal to 4, or y is an element of all real numbers. And that means negative 4 to 4 with square brackets. So far, so good. It's hopefully getting easier. It's not easy when you start domain and range. So it's okay if you're fuzzy. It's okay if you're still fuzzy. You need to study, do all the questions over. You have all the answers for the questions. Do them over and over. So you're going to get questions like this. More. C and D. Well, I don't know. I guess I'll do that. Extend it. C goes forever left and right and goes forever up and down. So the domain and the range are almost identical. All values of x, such that x is all element of all real numbers. The range is all values of y. Anytime you have a straight line, as long as it's not horizontal or vertical, that's going to be the domain and the range. And of course, you can interval notation it up like that. Both the domain and the range. This one, harder. The domain is going forever left and forward right. Domain is the same thing. All the numbers in the whole wide world. Range is not the same thing. The range is 1, 2, 3, and down. So down means less than or equal. Or to the left means less than or equal. Talking about domain and range. Down for range means all the values of y, such as y is less than or equal to 3, or y is an element of all real numbers. And someone give me the interval notation for that if you haven't spoken yet. Please, Maria.
Circle bracket -3, comma 3 square bracket.
Love it. Perfecto. Alex, agreed? So that's negative infinity to 3. And so you always start the lowest to the highest, okay? So even though I wrote down 3 down, you don't start at 3, you start for the lowest numbers, which is negative infinity, and go up to 3. Whether you write it from interval notation, always go from lowest number to highest. And play C for C. Is that it? That's it. Everyone gets 5 out of 5, whether you're here or not. I will try to remember to put that on today at some point. Right now, get your textbooks out. And, oh, hold on. The most important thing I can tell you right now is that your quest tomorrow is on pages 1 to 27. Okay, so nothing that we're doing today. Pages 1 to 27. There is a little bit of Xbox work on there, but not the football example. You don't need to know how to do the football question tomorrow. Okay, just knowing how to do X, Y intercepts, vertexes, and sketching on your graphing calculator. Okay, so make sure you bring your calculator and everything else we've done from pages 1 on. Graphing without a calculator, X, Y intercepts, domain range, independent, dependent, input, output. I think we even talked about independent, dependent variables, or sorry, discrete and continuous. Were you seeing both? You probably thought it was me, honey. That wasn't. That was the grass. All right. So let's pause there for a second. Okay, so halfway done-ish the questions. You've done the unit, I should say. Now we're going to ask 2 important questions. Is it a function? Yes or no? And is it a function? Yes or no? Sorry, I'm thinking of 2 sections and they're asking the same question. Also, we're doing function notation, which is going to get into some good stuff if you love algebra. So, first of all, make sure you know the definition of function for the rest of your life, especially on your wedding day. Every x has exactly 1 y, not vice versa. So if you are looking at a mapping diagram or even a graph, you're asking, does every x have exactly 1 y, not vice versa? Okay, so every x has exactly 1 y. It can be the same y. I'll talk to you more about it. So ordered pairs. Example of a function, 7, 11, -2, 5. Each x has exactly 1 y. So you're wondering, what does that mean? Well, if I say 1, 7, 11, and then this is 7, 10, and this is 7, 9, then the x7 would not have exactly 1 y. It would have 3 y's, and it would be not a function. So write that down for the example of a function. Write this down for an example of an arrow diagram. These all have exactly 1 y. However, if the 5 was also had an arrow to the 8, this would not be a function because the 5 would have 2 y's. Okay, every x has to have exactly 1 y. So you're going to I'm going to give you a diagram or order pairs, and you're going to say whether it's a function or not. That is a function. We'll learn about the vertical line test next. Which is an easier concept to do as opposed to explain. But this does a pretty good job of explaining the vertical line test. So again, get your textbook out. Kinda, not really, yes. Yeah, get your textbook out. I'm not going to rewrite this graph. However, when we do the check your understanding, please don't look at the answer. Actually, never mind. I think it's a different question than asking the textbook. But we're just doing vertical line tests. Okay, so every x has to have exactly one y. What does that mean when in context of a graph? That means if you draw a vertical line, and you don't need to write this down, if you draw a vertical line anywhere on the graph, it can only hit the graph once. If you draw a vertical line and it hits a graph more than once, it's not a function. If it can only hit it once, it is a function. That means every x has exactly one y. Here, this x, -2, has a y over here and a y over here, so that does not work. Now, we're not going to write each graph points because that would take forever. So you can just apply the vertical line test. If you draw a vertical line, if it only hits the graph once, it is a function. If it hits the graph more than once, it's not a function. So, page 290 in the text, example 1a, has dots. It has, okay, so 1a is like this. And so if you draw a vertical line, you can hit more than one point, so it's not a function. 1b has ordered pairs like that. So is that a function or not a function? You can only hit a point once when you draw a vertical line, so that is a function. Every x has exactly one y. Okay, so now let's do these ones, and you don't have to. This is check your understanding. You can, yeah, it gives you the answer. So let's just do it here. So tell me whether this is a function or not a function. And write it down. And I'm going to just do my best. It's not going to. I think you get the message. So just write down yes or no. Yes, it is a function, and no, it is not a function. I think it's going to take more time for you to write it down than actually answer the question. Okay, yes or no for this one, everyone? Yes, it's a function. You can only hit the graph one time with a vertical line. That's a cool way to say yes. And what about this one? That's a cool way to say no. Yeah, I can draw a line and hit 4 points there. So it is not a function. No. Now you're going to go to page 294 in your textbook. And just answer this question. Don't answer the questions they ask you. Is it a function? So all the numbers from 6 to 8. If you don't have your textbook, take a picture of this page. And I already know if you have to write down the graphs. I guess it just takes 5 seconds. But just put yes or no. If you were borrowing someone's book, just take a picture of it. Don't touch the book, please. Thank you. And I'll give you, it's not even going to take you that long, 4-ish minutes to do 6, 7, 8, all the questions. Just record. So you guys say this. I'm not going to go writing this down. So number 6A. Just say yes or no. Yes, it's a function. No, it's not. So just say yes or no. 6A, everyone?
Yes.
You guys hear that podcast, people? No, they said to say louder. So yes. B, yes or no? Louder?
No.
Good. I better say it just in case they can't hear. No. 7A.
Yes.
Ooh. You must have heard that one. B.
Yes.
C.
Yes.
D.
Yes.
All right, all the 7s are yes. So I guess if you don't know, just put yes. No, that's not good. 8A.
Yes.
B. No. 8C. No. D. Yes. E. No. Okay. Does that take a long time? No, it doesn't. Just don't reverse your answers and get them all right. Why am I ahead of myself here? Okay, go to page 30. Do the next 4. Yes or no? Is it a function? Do these yes or no, just put simply yes or no. And I think I'm going to give you a minute to do all 4. So you're down to 22 seconds. So you're done already. I should give you a 1,000 question test exam on vertical angle. Okay. Is this a function, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no? Okay, and just again to explain why this point isn't quite this, but we're going to say this is 1, 2, and this is 1, -2 decimal something. So you can see this x has more than 1y, and similarly, this is 1, 1, and this is 1, -1. So this x has more than 1y, so that's why it's not a function. You should understand it as well. All right, do the next ones. Almost the whole page gone in 10 seconds, but even more than 10 seconds, but not much more than 10 seconds. Do example 3, just yes or no. You don't need to explain. I think we just did that. So A might be a little trickier now. Is every x have exactly 1y? So for A and B, you just look at the x's. If they're all different, it's a function. If there's 2 that are the same, that's not a function because that x has more than 1y. Okay, so for this one, you just look at your x's. If they're all different, it's a function. If any of them repeat, it's not a function. Because that x would have more than 1y. Just a flying. Be nice to get the function notation tomorrow. Yes, we will. Well, I saw yesterday that made my day. I just saw some girl I don't even know in Mrs. Spears' class turn around to another girl and they just had the greatest laugh. And I thought, this is why it's so good to be in school. Because when you're not in school, you don't have the greatest laugh with your computer monitor. I was just so happy to see that. And still think we're so blessed to be in school. I didn't think we would last longer than 2 weeks. I thought we were going to be out of school from September to June. I'm so glad I'm wrong. Aren't you glad you see my face? Mask. No comments. Crickets. I don't know what that means. I think it means yeah, very happy to see my face. Okay. Yes, yes, no, yes, yes, no, yes, yes, no, yes. Do it fast. No. That's actually right down for it. Yes, a function. Oh, that's the one. All you have to ask yourself, does every x have exactly one y? Yes, it does. It can have the same y. This x has one y. This x has one y. This x has one y. That's it. That's the function. The one that's not a function is when this x has two y's. That's not a function. But this one is a function, and that's one that will be wrong the most. D, no. E, or I guess F. Is F a function? Yes, it is. Is G a function? No. Yes, sir.
So for C,
Yep.
Y can have two x's, but x can have two y's.
Yep. Good clarification. Well done. I'll get your name on the board for that statement. You're ready for it. Another chance to win. Okay, next page. A little different than what we usually see, so don't get scared. It's just like a table of values. This is just weird notation. So top of page 31, my old high school football number. And what this is saying is, this is just saying f of x equals 3x plus 1 is just a different notation. Now this is a bit different though, but it's not. This is just saying the domain, what's that? The x is negative 1, 0, 1. So just like a table of values, where you plug that into the equation and you tell me what you get. Okay, so for negative 1, you would get 3 times negative 1 plus 1, which is negative 2. So negative 1 would go to negative 2. For 0, you would get 3 times 0. That's coming from this equation here, plus 1. So the x, the domain 0, the x-coordinate 0 goes to the y-coordinate 1. Next one is 1. 3 times 1 plus 1 goes to 4. And 2 is 3 times 2 plus 1 goes to 7. So you can do it like that, or if you want to just translate into a table of values, you can. But go ahead and list the elements of the range. Show all of these guys with the information I just gave you. It's a different question there that you're doing the same thing you would when we graphed ordered pairs, when I gave you a table of values and an equation or a line. So podcast people, pause when you're ready, unpause. Let's do this and then I'll get you to work on the rest of the homework. Elements of the range is just what's the y part. So we already did that. It's negative 2, 1, 4, 7. That's the y parts. Okay. Arrow diagram. Okay. It's also called a mapping diagram. So negative 1, 0, 1, and 2 are your x. It's like a table of values. They go to negative 2, 1, 4, and 7. So that's what they want for a mapping or an arrow diagram. Ordered pairs, easy enough. Negative 1, negative 2, 0, 1, 1, 4. And the next question is you just plot those points on the graph. So -1, -2, I don't know, it's just going to depend. 0, 1, 1, 4, and 2, 7, something like that. And I'm going to just get used to my habit of naming my line. So when you do that tomorrow and you graph a line, you make sure you label it and put arrows on the end. And go ahead and do the next page or the next question. Bottom of page 31, we'll correct that in class, including the top of page 32, and then work on homework. Page 32, 33, you got lots of time. You got 20 minutes to work on that. If you're done that, you can study for your quest on pages 1 to 27. Pause. Okay, let's rate these. And again, you just have to look at X. If they're all different, that's all you look for. So I don't care that these are the same. Does every X have exactly 1 Y? Yes. It's a function. Does every X have exactly 1 Y? Okay, so now you just have to see if they only go to one of them. Yes. Even though it doesn't look like it's a function because there's 2 X's going to the 5, it is still a function. Every X has exactly 1 Y. This one, if you look at here, you're going to say no. If you just look at the X's, yes, they're all different. They have exactly 1 Y. Yes. No. Yes. No. Vertical line test. Any questions on those guys? Hardest questions are B and C. Next, we just did that. You have to put in 0 for X and then calculate to get the Y. So here it would be, I'm just going to do it the other way. I'm going to relate it to a table of values. It might be easier for you to do that. So this is 2 times 0 plus 5, which that's 5. That's 2 times 1 plus 5. 2 times 2 plus 5. 2 times 3 plus 5. Those are the ordered pairs. It says to graph them. So now I need to graph them. 0, 5, 1, 7. It's going to be something like that. And again, get into the habit of writing down the equation of the line and drawing arrows so you don't lose silly marks tomorrow or during the test. Now, where is it? Now, Trevor reminded me to write down a little summary on domain and range. If you're having a hard time understanding what to put, whether you put this, oops, or whether to put this, or whether to put this. You can't guess, they all look kind of similar. You have to know what they mean. So there's really 4 types of these questions. First one is arrows that go on forever. Arrows forever in both directions. So you might be looking at something like this for domain, or something like this. If you have something like that, it's simply the domain equals X an element of all real numbers, or you can write that in negative infinity to infinity-ish interval notation. Second step is arrows go forever in one direction. Or I guess it should be arrow goes forever in one direction. So example of this is if you have that or something weird like that. And I could also put in, I guess we'd be up to that'll be range. We're just talking about domain here. The domain here is, we'll say -2 and forever. So whenever you have a question that has one arrow, it's either going to be, it's going to look like this, okay? It's going to be a greater than or less than symbol, not two numbers in between, not all real numbers. It's going to be greater than or less than. And if you're talking about domain, it's going to be right or left. But let's talk about both. So if the arrow's going to the right for the domain, or for the range, if it's going up, you're going to use greater than or equal symbol. So in this case, this is -2 and to the right. So this is x is greater than or equal to -2. If the domain is to the left, the arrow's pointing left, or if you're talking about the range and the arrows are going down, I don't have it in my brain there, you're going to use a less than or equal symbol. Okay, so this is, and we'll just say 2, and everything to the left of 2. So here the domain would be x is less than or equal to 2, where x is an element of all real numbers. So it's helpful to know if you have one arrow in one direction, you're going to use the greater than or less than symbol. That's it. If you don't have any arrows, or aka between two numbers, that's when you're going to use the number less than or equal to x less than or equal to the number. So you have something like this tomorrow, or this that just has a point but no arrow left or right. That means the domain here, I don't know, let's just say -4 to +3, are all the numbers, all values of x such that between -4 and 3, you write down -4 and 3, x in the middle, and then use your less than or equal signs. So that's the only time you do that, when you have no arrows. So don't do this when you have examples 1 and 2. And then there's a fourth one that you don't really see very often. It's when you have a vertical or a horizontal line. Let's just say this is at x equals -3, vertical line 3 to the left. What's the domain? How far left and right does it go? So what's the domain for this one? I'm going to get you to do this for me, please. And what's the range for this one? To understand. So what are the values of x for the graph for the domain? What are the values of possible values of y for the graph for the range? And the domain is the hardest one. The domain is what? X equals -3. This is -3, 0. This is -3, -4. This is -3, 17. All the x values are just -3. And then the range is how far does that graph go up and down? -infinity to infinity if you're doing interval notation. Okay, so good question. Trevor, you guys finish the rest of your homework, or you can study pages 1 to 27 for your quest tomorrow. So that's on Sunday.